right. Well, it's the immigration police state, everybody. So let's get into it. And the very sad story for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And yeah, this is a tough one. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's nightmare continues. The DOJ is asking the court to reinstate criminal charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Unbelievable. They already, numerous judges, more than one judge, has found vindictive prosecution against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Again, the way the process went, they kidnapped him, put him on a plane. A judge said, hey, don't fly those people to CCOT in El Salvador. You haven't given them due process. Trump said, la, 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 can't hear you. We're on the plane. Can't hear you. Can't turn around. Don't know how it works. I'm like the wizard. Can't come back. They send him to CCOT. While he's in CCOT, people like Jeff Cooner and others are like, oh, he's a gangbanger. He's a member of a gang. Never convicted of any crime. Never prosecuted. And they claim he's a gangbanger, just like so many of these other guys. Some of these people are tortured in CCOT. United States government pays the president of El Salvador, who has a friend who runs the system there, to keep them in CCOT. And the U.S. says, oh, well, we don't know. They're there now. We don't know how to get them back now. We can't give them due process now. We just don't know how to do it. Maybe we could just send them to some other countries. And then Marco Rubio says, yeah, maybe we could do it by video. And the judge says, no. One of the judges says, no, you got to have him come back. Well, while he's gone, they set up this spurious case by giving a special deal to somebody who shared a cell with him for a little while. And that guy, who himself was going to get deported, they made a deal. We won't deport you if you claim that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was trafficking people when he got pulled over years ago and they never prosecuted him for it. Now, suddenly they're making this story and Pam Bondi's all set up to try to prosecute him because he's an evil person, clearly. You know, because he's kidnapping people and sending them to CCOT. Oh, sorry, that's the government that did that. With your money. I didn't hear Kilmar Abrego Garcia taking your money. He was working. Even if he had illegal immigrants in his car, he was driving them to work. Even if it was him driving illegal immigrants to work, there's no federal case to be made against him because the word immigration isn't in the U.S. Constitution. It's a state issue. At every level, they have no argument here. There is zero argument. But again, it's like arguing with a criminal who's got a gun in your face. It doesn't matter. You might be right, but they'll still shoot you. So this is what they're doing to Kilmar. The judge found that, yes, indeed, they did seem to incentivize people to speak up against Abrego Garcia, even though there actually hadn't been a case brought against him for years. But in the intervening period, when he was in CCOT, they made up this case. So judges said, you know what? Sounds like vindictive prosecution. And one after another, every charge they had against him dropped until finally a judge said, we're done. No more. Well, guess what? They still want to ship him to Liberia. And here it is. The Justice Department just asked a federal appeals court Monday to reinstate the criminal charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man wrongfully deported by the Trump administration last year by reversing a lower court order that found them to be vindictive in nature. In May, this is one of the worst things you can have in the justice system is vindictive prosecution. Because essentially you're using the justice system as a weapon to wrongfully try to screw somebody up legally. Total malfeasance. This is like one of the worst things you could ever do in the justice system. Vindictive prosecution. In May, and luckily they caught it. There were a couple honest judges there. In May, a federal judge in Tennessee dismissed a criminal indictment against Abrego Garcia, who had been accused by federal prosecutors of smuggling immigrants in the U.S. illegally. The judge found that the Justice Department prosecuted Abrego Garcia in retaliation for his efforts to challenge his wrongful deportation to El Salvador last year. In a filing Monday before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, the Justice Department denied that the prosecution was vindictive, arguing it had multiple legitimate bases to prosecute. It's astounding. The decision to seek an indictment against Abrego Garcia for human smuggling was made by career prosecutors based on the evidence. No, you know what? If you had the evidence, you would have kept him here rather than sending him to CCOT and then spending 3.5 months to try to build a case and suckering somebody who had been in a cell with him to turn state's evidence when years ago he could have done it and he didn't do it. This is so flagrantly ridiculous. It's insulting. It's like getting spit in the face repeatedly, constantly. It's like a hose of spit. This poor guy. Unbelievable. And again, they want to ship him to Liberia. Abrego Garcia's defense team said to CBS News that the Justice Department's news release about this was flat wrong, saying that, quote, the indictment and prosecution of Abrego Garcia was, in fact, vindictive. The evidence before the district court established just that, and the proof was clear, notwithstanding the DOJ's refusal to call the actual decision makers, including Attorney General Todd Blanche, to testify under oath. This case was initiated vindictively and on instructions from the White House after our client successfully won his Supreme Court case. Abrego Garcia was charged last year with 2 counts of human smuggling stemming from a November 2022 traffic stop in Tennessee, where he was pulled over by State Highway Patrol and was found to have numerous people in his vehicle. And, of course, they didn't prosecute him. They didn't do anything. In 2022, and again, when they picked him up and they sent him to CCOT, they didn't make any accusation against him. It was only after he pushed back on it that they then approached that dude and said, hey, you know, we could help you out. We won't ship you away if you say this story about Abrego Garcia. And again, even if that man were telling the complete truth and Abrego Garcia was smuggling 1,000 people, there's no federal case for it. But where do they want to ship them? This will be the second of the many, many pieces on immigration that are all over the place. I'm telling you, if you think I'm concentrating, a lot on immigration, believe me, it's much worse than you think. Like huge portions of my day are devoted to just discovering more and more stories. It's not like I'm searching for these things that much either. They're everywhere, everywhere. This is a police state. This is so bad. It's so corrupt with GeoCorp and the warehouses and the governors and the mayors and the various politicians and the Trump administration. It is so unbelievably bad. It's a multi-layer cake of corruption here. You're never going to get to the bottom. It's unbelievable. Check this out. Liberia's government just agreed to take 1,200 kidnap victims from ICE. Most, if not all of them, do not come from Liberia, of course, but instead they come from the Western Hemisphere. So this comes from RT, and here's the story. Liberia has denied receiving compensation. That's just because it's not been told yet. It hasn't been revealed, but they are going to be getting some sort of help. You'll see in the story. Liberia has agreed to accept up to 1,200 third-party migrants deported from the U.S. under a controversial agreement pushed by the Trump administration as part of its sweeping immigration crackdown. The transfers will take place over 1 year, with the first group of 20 men due to arrive in the Western African country on Thursday. Liberia's Ministry of Information said this in a statement on Tuesday. The arrangement, concluded through an exchange of diplomatic notes in September 2025, covers medically cleared nationals of, get this, African and Western Hemisphere countries. Okay? So again, they're taking people who come from the Western Hemisphere and they're sending them to Liberia. That's what the U.S. is doing. Those transferred may apply for asylum in Liberia or leave the country voluntarily, the ministry stated. It said the deportees are not criminals and will be treated as guests rather than prisoners. Did you catch that? You're their guest. Try running away. The government said it would provide protection and support during their stay. Monrovia insisted that the arrangement is not a transaction with a quid pro quo, and that Liberia, quote, has not demanded or received any compensation or promise of reward. Now, here's the other shoe. It's like, big shoe size. However, it's like NBA star size, Shaq. However, said the country, now remember, they said that they haven't received any compensation or promise of reward. However, it said the country, quote, will receive support to help manage the program and strengthen its migration system more broadly without disclosing the value or terms of the assistance. There you go, huh? Want to make some cash, just head on over into Liberia and help those guys out. I'm sure if you get connected with the U.S. government and you have some front organization, probably can make some heavy bucks doing that. Unbelievable.